Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Ninjas96 and in today's video we are going to be attempting a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald. This is not just any old hardcore Nuzlocke, this is going to be my own specially designed Chainlocke challenge. Now if you have not already seen the Chainlocke challenge, we're going to go over the rules in a bit more detail in a second, but essentially we can only catch Pokemon whose type matches the type of a Pokemon we already have. I know that's confusing, we'll go over it, don't worry. This is a challenge that we have already tried on the channel in Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl, in fact twice, and I've also tried it in Pokemon Crystal and Pokemon Leaf Green separately as well. Now, let's get on to talking about the rules. So the basic rules of a Nuzlocke still apply. Once a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and cannot be used anymore. You can only catch the first Pokemon you encounter in every area as long as it meets the capture requirements. You must nickname your Pokemon, and once you white out, the run is over. Additionally, the hardcore rules mean that I am set by the level cap of the highest level Pokemon of the next gym leader. My battle style is set to set mode, and I cannot use healing items in battle like potions or full restores. Now, the additional rules of the Chainlocke are that after I pick my starter, I can only catch a Pokemon whose type matches one of the types among the Pokemon I already own. Now, to clear this up, we have our three starters. We have Mudkip, Torchic, and Trico. In this case, we could catch Wingull because it matches Mudkip's water type, Numel because it matches Torchic's fire type, or Shroomish because it matches Trico's grass type. However, once Torchic evolves into Combuskin, we would also be able to catch Makuhita, who matches the fighting type. I've put a lot of work into this video, trying to make it as polished as I can, so now seems like a good opportunity to ask that if you do enjoy the video, that you leave a like, and you consider subscribing for more videos like this. Without further ado, let's get into the run. We step out of the van and into Little Root Town to begin our run, and this Vigoroth is quite clearly just watching TV. Our next responsibility is going to see the local Pokemon professor, Professor Birch. The incredibly professional Professor Birch seems to be being attacked by literally the weakest Pokemon in the entire region. But this does give us an excuse to pick up our starter Pokemon, so let's do that. In this region, we get a choice between Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip. Now, as we've seen in every Chainlocke so far, the fire starter is a tough pick. No other fire types for a long time in pretty much every region, and the fighting type that Torchic gains when it evolves doesn't give us any other types to chain off of for a long time, so that's out. Trico is good to grab, as it works well in the first few gyms, and lets us chain into some early encounters like Lotad, Seedot, or Shroomish. But, as you will see, we can still get those encounters, so I've decided to go for Mudkip. Mudkip is by far the strongest individual starter, with water chaining into good types, and some really useful early game pickups. It also picks up the ground type when it evolves, which will help us chain into some really important types for the later game. So our new Mudkip falls at pretty much the first hurdle, missing its first ever attack. But he does eventually defeat the Zigzagoon. We decide to name our new Mudkip Mako, and it has a neutral, hardy nature. I decided to level Mako up to level 9 before challenging May. I don't fancy a difficult fight this early on. After we beat May, we get Pokeballs. That means I can catch my first encounter. I catch a Lotad on Route 102 called Johnny Steps. This is why Mudkip is important, because it can easily chain into a grass type very early on. On Route 104, I pick up a Wingull chained onto our water type. We call it Sky. Then, in Petalburg Woods, we pick up Shroomish, chained onto the grass-type Lotad. This is a really important way of diversifying our type specialty. We call it Spectre. Shroomish helps us race through to 116, where we grab Crow, the tailor, and the mandatory Whismur, who we call Rebecca. We grind the team up a little bit to approach the level cap of 15. We don't need to go all the way to 15, though. I think you know how this goes. As you can see, Roxanne is not difficult when you start with Mudkip, and as a reward for soloing the gym, Mudkip evolves into Marshtomp and gains the ground typing, which will become important later. In Granite Cave, I encounter Camula the Zubat. Not a great encounter, but could get us into the poison type if we need to. I then bring Sky and Crow up to the level cap and prepare for another easy fight, this time against Brawly. Brawly leads with Machop, and I send in Crow for her debut. Crow leaves Machop with a Sliver using Wing Attack, but he just goes for Bulk Up. Brawly heals, and this time Wing Attack can finish Machop in 2 before he can get any hits in. His ace Makihita survives with a sliver, and heals up with a citrus berry. A second wing attack can't secure the kill, but Crow survives with a vital throw on literally 2 HP. Whew, that's close. A few turns later, Tailo secures the win. If you're not aware, Tailo is an incredible Pokemon, especially if it can be pre-poisoned due to its Guts ability. I've chosen not to do that because I think it's too strong, but as you can see, Tailo is excellent. Now we can move forward to some new encounters. On Route 110, I catch a Gulpin, which I call Marek. We changed it from that Zubat that we got from Granite Cave earlier, so that encounter did actually prove useful. I decided to add it to the team in place of Lombre, whose typing and move pool are just too restrictive for the time being. Our next fight is on Route 111, and it's the infamous May fight. She's got a solid Fire Water Grass core now, and with our somewhat limited roster, it could be a challenge. I expected to lead with Slugma, but she actually leads with Wingull. I think I've made a mistake somewhere. So I lead with Mako. Tackle does just under half, and Mako suffers an attack drop, but the Wingull does fall. May brings in her scary Grovyle next, who we have to flee from. I pivot into Marek to tank and absorb, then go for Poison Gas. I miss, and May reveals Pursuit, so it's no longer safe for us to switch in and out. Sludge from Marek does a big chunk of damage, but I could be dead to a crit. I stay in, take about 20 damage to Pursuit before defeating Grovyle. Sky manages to handle her Slugma very well, although it does scare me with a rock throw, but we end up surviving it and winning anyway. I spent some time AFK farming the roulette table at my completely legitimate Game Boy Advance, so I could upgrade my team with TMs. I actually do this a couple of times through the run, but this is the only time I'm going to show it. I played this roulette so much in the originals, and know that if you just mash the A button, or turbo it as I am here, you'll get net positive. So I went to get a cup of tea and waited for the sweet profit to roll in. When I came back, like 2 hours later, I had enough coins to pick up Ice Beam and Thunderbolt, since I figured they'd come in handy. Going into the Watson fight, our Shroomish evolved into the mighty Breloom. This is going to make this battle significantly easier. We also leveled up Marek and Mako up to the level cap of 24, but we left Crow and Sky at level 20 because they're not going to be used anyway. We lead Breloom into Watson's Voltorb. First, we take down Voltorb, although Spectre does get paralysed in the process. Spectre then turns its attention to Electrike, who lands a weak Shockwave before Breloom ends it. In comes Magneton, whose Shockwave does decent damage. We also get fully paralysed, and then knocked down to just 2 HP from a Sonic Boom. We have to switch here. Into Mako, who absorbs the Shockwave with its ground typing. Mako gets confused by Supersonic, and hurts itself in confusion. This could be bad. So I pivot into Sky the Wingull, expecting a Sonic Boom, and then back in to cure confusion, and take out Magneton with a Mud Shot. That was closer than I would have liked, but we're not done yet. Last up is Manectric, who's very scary at this sort of level. It starts off with a Howl, and Mako lands a Mud Shot. It brings Manectric down to about half, but then Manectric recovers back up with Citrus Berry. A second Mud Shot leaves Manectric in red, and he howls again. Watson heals up, and I go for Tackle to avoid Mud Shot's lower accuracy. It does next to nothing, and Static paralyses Mako. With Manectric at +2, a strong neutral attack could kill Mako, and being paralysed means I know he will go first. My options are bleak. Even if I try to save Marshtomp, there's no way to know if other team members can secure the kill. Somebody has to die. I click Mudshot and pray. Mako lives! We may have died to a crit, but I think that's the only way we could have survived this fight. That's our third gym badge. The Route 112 encounter presents a personal favourite of mine, Numel, who we can chain off of Marshtomp's ground type. I told you that would be important later. I take care not to knock it out and call him Axel. I also find Loomis the Coughing in Fiery Path and Sora the Spinder in the ash-covered route above, neither of whom advance our team or our chain currently. As I prepare to ascend Mount Chimney, I contemplate our future. The team is strong, but we have very few encounters coming up that can expand our type chain or develop our team in any meaningful way. Sky is falling behind, and we have a distinct lack of some key types going into the Elite Four. It will take a lot more work to perfect the team, but I think we can. Maxi fight at the top of Mount Chimney goes by quickly enough, and then other than getting seriously lost in Flannery's gym, we can easily clear out all the trainers. Flannery is strong though, so we need to spend some time training up the team. Let's start by evolving Wingull into Pelipper. We lead our new Pelipper, Sky, against her Numel, and we easily OHKO it with a water gun. Slugma comes in next and falls in the same way. Camerupt also gets one shot by Pelipper. Now, you might think we're going to steamroll this gym, but actually the difficulty of Flannery is just one single Pokemon, Torkoal, who comes in next. Crucially, Torkoal knows Overheat, an incredibly powerful attack. Sky's first water gun does about a third to Torkoal, then it sets up Sunny Day. Now, in the sun, our water type attacks do less damage, so we have to stall out a few turns using Protect. However, Torkoal goes for Attract. I try and stall out one more turn in the sun, but I'm immobilized by Love. While I'm out of kill range, I can push it, so we press on and eventually knock it out with just Sky. That could have gone much worse. Hey, our Gulpin evolved too! Neat! Other than a couple of encounters we don't end up using in the desert, it's time to go straight to Norman. The plan against Norman is to rely on Pelipper, using Protect to deal with the Truant Slackings. That means all I need to worry about is Spinder and Linoon. Hopefully Breloom can handle that on its own. Breloom hits hard with Mach Punch, OHKOing Norman's Spinder, and critting Vigoroth for a KO as well. Linoon hangs on in the red, but just tries to belly drum. Norman wastes some potions before Linoon gets downed. Since I'm greedy, I keep Spectre in and do crazy small damage with Mach Punch. Then Slacking yawns, so I have to switch in his Truant turn. Now, Sky can work his magic, going for Protect on each of the attacking turns, and attacking on each of the Truant turns. This takes a while, but eventually secures the win, after using our last Protect PP. Another easy win. Now we have Surf, we can start cleaning up some encounters, starting with a Marill in Petalburg, which we call Ali, a Tentacle on Route 115 called Kurage, and a Zigzagoon on Route 118, because for some reason I couldn't find one anywhere else. I should point out now, a lot of encounters we've had haven't been relevant at all, so I haven't mentioned them, but some of these will be later on, mostly to block off other encounters later on to make sure we get the better ones in the routes that matter. We blast through the Weather Institute in no time and head for our next rival fight, who Marek sends to the Shadow Realm pretty quickly indeed. We actually came very close to breaking the level cap when leveling up for Winona, including Numel evolving into Camerupt and learning Rock Slide. That, paired with some of the TMs we grinded for earlier, should leave us in good stead for this gym fight. Winona leads Swablu, so I keep it simple with Swallow, who can defeat Swablu in 2 wing attacks. In comes Tropius, who falls the same way, leaving Crow at about 2/3 of her HP. I sub in Swallow, who now knows Shockwave. Pelipper is tanky, but she largely wastes my time with Protect stalling, and I managed to take it out eventually. Now she brings in her ace Altaria, who knows Earthquake, so I have to pivot out of Swallow into Pelipper. Meanwhile, she sets up Dragon Dance. That could be a problem. Sky does very little damage and ends up in the red. Nothing switches in favourably here, so I decide to let Sky fall. Between Mako and Axel, the Team Aqua and Magma hideouts go quickly and easily. We also managed to evolve Mako into a Swampert, but some poor planning followed by really poor RNG makes Maxi pretty challenging. 7 turns in a row being hurt by confusion. 7. Swallow goes down to Crobat, which is rough, but we still have Camerupt to deal with. I'm confident Mako can outspeed, and one-hit KO with Surf, but if I'm wrong, we lose our starter. I don't have another choice though, so I go for it, and it works. Another death sucks, but at least we made it. Rest in peace, Marek. I don't have any songs for Marek though. You'll notice that I've yet to fill out the missing spots on my team, from where Sky and Marek fell. That's because I had planned to chain into Beldum, a Steel and Psychic type, off of Baltoy, a Ground and Psychic type. However, when I got to Moss Deep City, I learned that this is a post-game encounter. So I can't do that. I'm not joking, about 3 gyms have passed, with me fully expecting to get Beldum here. Seems that's not something I'm able to do, so we've got some thinking to do. After what felt like hours of wrestling with these stupid fishing mechanics, I grab Chumley the Whalmer from Lily Cove and a Sharpedo, which I call Nash, the latter of which is added to the team. I grind up the team to the level cap and prepare to take on Tate and Liza. A quick team overview. I'm expecting to end this quickly by clicking Surf 4 times with Swampert and Sharpedo. That doesn't end up happening. I misclick. I intended to double down on Xatu and make sure it falls, but instead I used Crunch on Claydol. Luckily, an Ice Beam lands a critical hit on Xatu, even killing it through a Calm Mind. If I didn't have that crit, we would have been in deep, deep trouble. Nash takes a big hit, but I think we're good to go. A Surf from Sharpedo narrowly misses the kill from Claydol, and it does about a third to Solrock. Then, Crisis. Claydol uses Earthquake and it lands a critical hit, bringing Mako low and killing our brand new Shark. A Surf from Mako crits Solrock and takes out both Solrock and Claydol. Now it's just Lunatone we have to deal with. I swap out Mako for Swallow to try and protect our starter, and have Axel go for Flamethrower. Flamethrower does a good amount, and it burns, but Lunatone hits back with a Psychic against Swallow, which does about 2/3. Another hit like that will kill our Swallow, so we have to be careful. Crow uses Fly to try and avoid the Psychic, and stall the burn, but Lunatone has a Citrus Berry. This means we can't clear the Lunatone in time, and Swallow does go down to a solid Psychic. Then, Tate and Liza use a Hyper Potion, meaning another Psychic would kill Spectre. I click Sky Uppercut to secure the win. Much less smooth than I'd have liked, and losing Swallow sucks, but I think we can recover. Now we have Dive, I can pick up 2 basically guaranteed encounters and fill our team back up. Clamperl, who we box, and Chinchou, who we name Chaz. Chaz the Chinchou helps us chain into our next encounter, all the way back in New Marville, a Voltorb, which we name Bandit. I decided to add both of these to the team, as they're very useful into both Wallace and Juan, and a bunch of the trainers in between. This also marks our last useful encounter. Any other route we've either missed, or the encounters are a dupe, or they're just not useful. We can pick up more Pokemon if needed, but only one encounter would be viable for the team, I think. I filled the final slot with Loomis, the Coughing, to basically replace Marek from earlier.
My voice gives me super strength.
After a whole bunch of Team Aqua and Magma stuff and diving and surfing around and going on quests that basically amount to us beating a whole bunch of grunts, we encounter Rayquaza, Groudon and Kyogre. Ultimately, Rayquaza just sends them both to their room and we can resume our journey, unimpeded by Big Fish, Inferior One and Slifer the Sky Dragon's green cousin. With all that nonsense out of the way, it's time to fight Juan. Juan leaves Love's Disc, who gets taken down by a Thunderbolt from Lantern. Then he sends in Whiscash, so I pivot into Breloom, who hits Whiscash with a Giga Drain. It almost kills and manages to confuse Breloom in the process. Luckily, Whiscash is quite weak, so we can stay in against it until it's downed. He sends in Celio next, and I bring Lantern back, who is incredibly tanky, and takes out Celio and Crawdon with no hassle. Finally, Kingdra. This could be a problem. I begin with Confuse Ray, before I start chipping away with Thunderbolts. One Thunderbolt crits and paralyzes. The second Thunderbolt brings Kingdra low, but it survives long enough for a Hyper Potion from Juan. Lantern eventually gets frozen, so I have to switch into Loomis, whose haze can clear out Kingdra's evasion boosts. I stall as long as I can to bring in Bandit, who gets confused in the switch in. I manage to outspeed and land Spark to win the match. Jeez, out luck with confusion, and we got frozen! After claiming our 8th badge, we blast through Victory Road with next to no problems. Turns out having a team with both Lantern and Swampert on makes all of the trainers pretty easy. Then we grind to our arbitrary level cap of 50. Wallace's ace is level 56, but I think 50 is a good place to be, otherwise we'll just be so over leveled for Sydney it won't even be a challenge. This is what our team looks like. We have got Loomis the Wheezing with Sludge Bomb, Shadow Ball, Haze, and Flash. Axel the Camerupt with Flamethrower, Earthquake, Amnesia, and Rock Slide for some coverage. Bandit the Electrode with Thunderbolt, Rollout, Light Screen, and Swift. Spectre the Breloom with Giga Drain, Mach Punch, Stun Spore, and Sky Uppercut. Shaz the Lantern with Waterfall, Thunderbolt, Confuse Ray, and Ice Beam. And Mako our starter with Surf, Ice Beam, Earthquake, and Strength. It feels really good to be going into the Elite Four with a team this strong. Other than a couple of Pokemon that we lost, I don't think we could do better than this team. Let me know in the comments below what team you think you would end up with in this challenge. First up, we've got Sydney, the Dark-type specialist. Against Sydney, I lead Lantern to soak up Intimidate from his Mighty Anna. Waterfall does about half, and he uses Sand Attack. Sure, like we're still on Route 3. In comes Cacturn, so I sub in for Loomis. Loomis gets Cotton Spored, but I don't really care. A hard Sludge Bomb does the trick. Shiftry tries to use Double Team to be annoying, but it also falls to a Sludge Bomb. Against Crawdon, I go for Flash to scout out a bit and take a good whack of damage from Surf. So I swap in Lantern and Thunderbolt Crawdon. Last in is his Absol, who lands a critical hit slash for about a third. Our Waterfall also crits, taking it to the yellow after his Citrus Berry. That's enough to secure an easy win. Sydney's not usually difficult though, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Webby can be a challenge. She's up next. She's a ghost type specialist. Since I have no stab super effective moves against her, and she has excellent coverage, plus some annoying tactics to boot, this could be a challenge. I lead Loomis against her Dusclops. A Shadow Ball does just over half, so I decide to try and make her use full restores early. But she confuses Wheezing, so I gotta switch into Axel. Flamethrower from Axel does just over half, and we break through a Confused Ray for the kill. She uses her second Dusclops next, who can Earthquake, so I bring Loomis back to Shadow Ball for about a third. The second one brings Dusclops to the red, and it gets a special defense drop. Loomis secures the kill with another Shadow Ball. Bayonet now, who can use Psychic, so I use Chaz to absorb Thunderbolt instead. Waterfall does just about half, and Thunderbolt takes it down. The second Bayonet takes about a third, and then knocks Lantern down to just 2 HP. Yikes. Axel comes back in to hit Flamethrower after taking just over half from Bayonet. Last up is her Sableye, so I'm safe to stay in and Flamethrower for the win. 2 down, 2 to go. Glacier basically just uses Celio, Walrein, and Glalie, but their coverage is pretty poor, so once again I lead Lantern, who does about 2/3 and fully paralyzes her Celio. She uses a full restore, but it doesn't matter, and Celio number 1 goes down. In comes Glalie, who sets up a light screen while I go for Confuse Ray, and then I swap into Mako. Mako takes about a quarter from Ice Beam, but does 2/3 in return with Earthquake, so another turn is all we need. She brings in Celio number 2, who sets up Hail and Light Screen fades, so a Thunderbolt does way over half. Once Celio is sorted, Glalie number 2 comes in. I'm trying to save PP where I can, so I switch into Camerupt, who tanks the Shadow Ball well. I do get a special defense drop, but I just survive an Ice Beam and kill the Glalie. The Hail stops this turn too. Bit lucky. Her Walrein uses Ice Beam as we bring in Lantern, and she gets a crit, bringing Lantern down low and freezing her. Again? Really? Are you kidding? I send in Loomis, who takes a lot of damage and only deals a little bit in return. I'm worried we'll lose a Pokemon here. Predicting a Surf, I bring in Breloom, who does survive. Sky Uppercut is enough to kill the Walrein, luckily. I didn't expect a Grass type to be that important for our Ice type Elite Four, but Breloom came in clutch. Thanks, Spectre. Drake's team is incredibly powerful, with mighty dragon types like Flygon and Salamence, and the Kingdra that's already given us grief once in this playthrough. I lead Mako into his Shelgon. Ice Beam isn't quite enough for the kill, then a crit double edge takes Mako to half. He stalls a few turns before going down to an Ice Beam. In comes Altaria, who uses double edge too, and it just survives an Ice Beam from Mako. I boldly stick to my guns, and Altaria brings Swampert down to just 2 HP before finally falling. Drake's Kingdra is a problem. Kingdra will always be a problematic Pokemon. Expecting a Dragon Dance, I sub into Bandit, but Kingdra uses Body Slam. I go for a Thunderbolt, which does about a third, so I go for another. Bandit is brought to the red, so I have to swap in for Lantern. Drake swaps too! He swaps into Flygon! I've never seen the Elite Four do this in these games. Chaz takes a really strong Earthquake and brings Flygon low too. I gotta swap again, so I pivot into Weezing, who takes a Crunch and a Flamethrower before I can finish the Flygon. Kingdra's back in, and it hits Loomis with a Surf, which does knock it out. It does give Breloom a safe switch in though, to Sky Uppercut. That knocks out the Kingdra. It took a sacrifice, but we did it. Just Salamence left now. We are not in the clear yet. I switch into Axel, who tanks Flamethrower. A strong Dragon Claw brings Axel really low. I don't have any option but to let Axel fall too. Bandit outspeeds with a Thunderbolt and paralyzes Salamence. That saves the run. Rest in peace, Bandit. Now Mako gets a safe switch in, and it outspeeds the Salamence to kill it with an Ice Beam. We lost a lot there, but I think Wallace is still manageable. I hope so, anyway. This is it. The champion of Hoenn. Well, I mean, not the real champion. There's only Wallace. He uses water types. We only have 3 Pokemon left. This is why Breloom and Lantern were so important leading into this. He also has a few key Pokemon which we need to play around. His Gyarados checks Breloom, so does Tentacruel actually. And his Whiscash and Ludicolo are both very dangerous for Swampert and Lantern, so we need Breloom for these. Then his Milotic is just very powerful and can use Recover to stall out the game. I lead Lantern on his Wailord, hoping to bait out Whiscash ASAP. Chaz opens up with Thunderbolt, critting and OHKOing Wailord. Let's Chaz it up, baby. For some reason he sends in Gyarados next. It can Earthquake and probably outspeed, but we have to hope. It goes for Dragon Dance and falls to a single Thunderbolt. I don't know what we would have done if he went for Earthquake. We might have just ended the run there. Now comes Ludicolo? I mean, so much for fighting Whiscash. I sub in Breloom here, as Ludicolo sets up a double team. Sky Uppercut does about half, and we just gotta land a second. And we do. Why is this going so well? Milotic next, who outspeeds and kills Breloom with Ice Beam. Could be an issue, but we'll keep going with Lantern and see where we get. I get Toxiced and confuse Milotic in return. I'm officially on a clock. Thunderbolt does about a third, and Wallace switches into Whiscash. This guy! I have to switch in Swampert, who crits with Surf for 2/3. Then Whiscash gets a crit too, and kills Swampert. Lantern does her best, but ultimately falls to a Hyper Beam, ending the run. There is a world where we won that. One less crit, or some better RNG earlier against Drake. I was very thrown off by Wallace's weird choice of Pokemons as well. Obey? Poebi. Phoebe. Phobia. Phoebe. Puebe? Puebi. All joking aside, I cannot thank you enough if you've made it this far into the video. As I said earlier, I put a hell of a lot of time and effort into trying to make this as streamlined and as polished as absolutely possible. I've learnt a lot while doing so. I've learned that I probably cut out too much, that maybe I could get away with putting some more extra little bits in between to help with the pacing. That's the kind of lesson that you just don't learn unless you try it. So let me know in the comments how you feel about it. Is there stuff that you missed from this playthrough that you wish was included, or stuff that you didn't think you needed to see? I'm genuinely really curious to see what you have to say. As for an upload schedule, obviously this has taken a really, really long time to get out and get published and make really good. I had planned to get it released sooner, but my microphone ended up breaking. So that was good fun. I do have other videos in the pipeline. Of course, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are coming out fairly soon. We've also got a Dungeon Dice Monsters retrospective video in the pipeline. That's been scripted. I just need to record it. Of course, a huge shout out to Fenton's Puzzle Box. We recently played through the Portal 2 co-op campaign on there. I'll make sure a link is in the description of this video, and it is also in my channel's community page somewhere, I believe, but I don't fully understand how that works. And most importantly, let me know how you feel about the Chainlocke. Because for Diamond and Pearl, it was very different than how it was for Hoenn. In Hoenn, it didn't seem to have much impact. It knocked off a few encounters, but that was basically it. So let me know what other interesting games or challenges you think might be worth doing in the comments section below. But thank you everyone for watching. I have been Ninjas96, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now.